नमस्कार, गुड आफ्टरनून एवरीवन हियर. आप सबका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है. Those of you whom I know and who know me, I recognize many familiar faces, but those of you whom I am seeing for the first time or who are seeing me for the first time, I am Gopal Bagle, the spokesperson and Joint Secretary XPD of the Ministry of External Affairs. I'm very happy to welcome all of you to this weekly press conference. In the beginning, I have a few readout and announcements to make, and then we will open the floor for questions as usual. My first readout is about the Indian Ocean Rim Association Leaders Summit, which, as you know, was held in Jakarta last few days. The Vice President of India led the Indian delegation to the first Indian Ocean Rim Association Leaders Summit held on 7th March 2017 in Jakarta to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the association. The summit was preceded by meetings of the Council of Ministers and the Committee of Senior Officials. The Minister of State for External Affairs, General Dr. V.K. Singh, retired, participated in the Council of Ministers, while Secretary Economic Relations, Shri Amar Sinha, led the talks at the Committee of Senior Officials. 3 documents were adopted during the summit. The first was the IORA Concord that was signed by the leaders and lays out the vision of IORA for the future, focusing in particular on cooperation among the 21 IORA member states on maritime safety and security. The 2 other documents adopted were the Declaration on Preventing Violent Extremism and Countering Terrorism and the Action Plan of IORA for the next 5 years. Addressing the summit, the Vice President offered to set up an IORA Center of Excellence in one of the coastal cities in India. The center is proposed to be set up with the objective of pooling of resources available with all the member states so that these can be accessed online by each member, including their academics and researchers. A network of IORA think tanks to synergize the efforts of all member states was also suggested. On the maritime front, India offered the institution of an information fusion center to coordinate maritime domain awareness, or MDA, and also offered to extend to all member states cooperation in the field of hydrography. The Vice President urged all the member states to work out modalities for institutionalizing an IORA cooperation mechanism on cyber security. As you would know, India is one of the leading players driving the IORA process. The association was revitalized under India's chairmanship during 2011 to 13, when, based on Indian proposals, 6 priority areas were identified. More recently, India announced 12 major initiatives across a range of cross-cutting issues during the previous COM at Bali in October 2016. 4 of these initiatives have already been implemented, and the others are expected to be completed during the course of this year. On the sidelines of the summit, the Honorable Vice President held bilateral meetings with His Excellency Mr. Joko Widodo, President of Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Sirisena, President of Sri Lanka, and His Excellency Mr. Mansoor Hadi, President of Yemen, His Excellency Mr. Yusuf Kalla, Vice President of Indonesia, and His Excellency Mr. Mohammad Javad Zarif, the Foreign Minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran. This completes my first readout. I have an announcement. It is regarding the visits of journalists from Africa. As part of India's commitments under the 3rd India-Africa Summit, held in October 2005 in New Delhi, a familiarization visit cum workshop is being organized for 30 senior journalists, editors representing 23 African countries from today, that is 9th March to 22nd March 2017. The visit program started today, as you know, with a 2-day-long 12th CII Exim Bank conclave, which was inaugurated by Rashtrapati ji. The conclave will be followed by an interactive workshop on writing and reporting conducted by the AJK Mass Communication Research Center, Jamia Millia Islamia, from 11th to 22nd of March. The program will also include visits to the offices of prominent Indian media houses and newspapers and calls on senior officials of Government of India. The significance of this lies that this is the first such effort where we are combining participation in the conclave together with a familiarization program for such a large number of African countries. Now I come to my third and last announcement. This is about the release of Indian fishermen by Sri Lanka. The government of Sri Lanka has informed the High Commission of India in Colombo that all 85 Indian fishermen currently in Sri Lankan custody will be released. We understand that instructions in this regard to the concerned authorities in Sri Lanka have been issued. We are awaiting further orders within Sri Lanka in this regard. This concludes my statements and readout. I am now open to questions and in your hands. Yes. Kindly, since I am interacting with some of you for the first time, please do introduce yourself.
Welcome, Gopal. Vijay Naik from Sakal Papers. I have two questions, you see. The Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi yesterday in a press conference said that he mooted an idea of BRICS plus countries actually, which means that they want expansion of the BRICS. And secondly, he said of a trilateral cooperation between USA, Russia, and China for the development and peace of the world. So what is your position on these two particular ideas?
Thank you, Vijay. As far as your first question goes about the proposal of the foreign minister for BRICS Plus, as you know, BRICS is a very important platform. India, as we all know, chaired the BRICS summit last year. And you would also recall that every BRICS chair has brought an outreach program when the summit or other events have been held. And you would recall that India arranged a BRICS outreach for the BIMSTEC, or rather BIMSTEC outreach for the BRICS participants. So the BRICS participants have brought together a flavor of their own geography to the other participants. We would await details of this suggestion from the Chinese side. As to your question about the cooperation among China, Russia, and USA, well, you know, we ourselves, India, is engaged with Russia and China, both bilaterally and also in the trilateral RICS framework. We consider that as large country in the world, we all have to consult and coordinate together, contribute to peace and development, not only in the region, but the world as a whole. Smita?
Gopal, Foreign Secretary Jaishankar, while he was in the US, he announced that they have taken a very considerate view on India's issues on H-1B visas, but at the same time we saw the suspension of the premium process. Could you give us a sense of what really are the assurances that have been given to the Indian side? And on Sri Lanka, while of course the prisoners are being released, but what is the view that the government takes of the Sri Lankan Navy's categorical denial that any shooting took place at all from their side?
Can I take your second question first, because the response to that is shorter. Sri Lanka, after the unfortunate incident in which one of the Indian fishermen lost his life, we reached to the highest possible levels of the Sri Lankan government in Colombo through our High Commission. Our deep concern at the killing of the Indian fishermen was conveyed. As you know, it's a matter of deep concern for the government. The Sri Lankan government has, of course, assured us that a very thorough investigation will be conducted in the matter. So let us await the outcome of that investigation. On your first question, I think I might take a little longer to respond. I might have a slightly more lengthy response to your questions because it's a very important issue as well. The discussions of the Foreign Secretary and the Commerce Secretary with their interlocutors in the United States last week, as you know, there was in general, I'm speaking of the bigger picture, there was a wide-ranging and strong recognition as well as respect for Indian skills and contribution of the Indian technological manpower to the US economy. It was widely agreed that the presence of Indian technical professionals had made and continues to make the United States more competitive and is actually helping its economy. All of us have seen the statements by senior US officials that illegal immigration and not H-1B is their priority. We have also seen that President of the United States himself has made a reference to merit-based approach on the subject. It has been our view that the presence of skilled Indian professionals is a positive for the US economy, as I just said, and particularly when the US seeks to build a stronger economy. There are advantages in terms of backward linkages also, as we all know. When we combine all this with our own government's efforts for economic reforms and high sustained economic growth, there is obviously a very important opportunity here for both countries to consolidate their economic partnership. This opportunity is there, and there was a very wide-ranging recognition of this opportunity in the Foreign Secretary's talks and Commerce Secretary's talks last week. The matters regarding the H-1B visa itself, as we said, earlier also you have heard the Foreign Secretary say this, that in a sense it is a trade and business issue, it is an economy issue. And you would have seen the NASSCOM statement also in this regard, which essentially, in substance, I don't recall the exact words, but the substance is that the suspension of premium processing process is not a very significant impediment. We'll continue to remain engaged with the US authorities in this regard. Could I first go back there, because I saw that hand first? Yes, please.
Thank you, Gopal. The first question is a supplementary to what has been. Thank you, Gopal. The first question is a supplementary to what Vijay had just asked you about the BRICS Plus thing. In the media reports that have come, both Mexico and Sri Lanka have been described as pro-Beijing. And we had the Mexican ambassador tell us at an interaction that Mexico was wholly on the side of India when it came to the vote in the NSG. Is it also the official perception that Sri Lanka and Mexico are pro-Beijing and they are bracketed with Pakistan? This is the supplementary. Second, on the visit, is it also the official perception that Mexico and Sri Lanka are pro-Beijing, and are they bracketed with Pakistan in official thinking? That is the first supplementary. The second question relates to the announcement of the Dalai Lama's visit to Tawang. Even by this, the Chinese official media has used the term that the Dalai Lama actually visiting Arunachal Pradesh would be considered an act of hostility. Even by the hawkish standards of Chinese official media, this is a very strong term. Is there any response that the MEA has to this? Thank you.
Again, could I first take up your second question? Well, you know, we have seen the media reports in Chinese media, and normally we don't report to, normally we don't respond to media reports. But since you have asked this question and it pertains to a very revered figure, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I would answer it. Essentially, as you know, our position, the government's position in this regard, on the whole HHDL or His Holiness the Dalai Lama matter, has been very consistent. It has not changed. As you know, we view him as a very revered figure, religious figure, who is treated as such by the government and the people of India. And we have actually no say in his travels within India. And no political meaning, I think, should be attached to such travels or such plans, in our view. As for your first question, I have a very brief answer, and that is no.
Hello, I'm Ellen Barry from the New York Times, and I wanted to ask about the case of Compassion International, an American Christian charity that has been in India for 50 years but is leaving now. Our State Department made a statement yesterday basically saying that there had been no evidence presented as the justification for excluding this charity from India. So I'd like to ask that question. What is the new evidence that has changed the government's view of this charity's work? And how is it adjudicated? And then finally, the executives of the charity say that they were approached in Washington by a representative of the RSS who offered to mediate with the government. What is the RSS's role in regulating the activities of Christian charities in India?
Thank you, Alan. I understand that we have been in touch on this issue. You as the representative of your organization, your media organization here, and I as the spokesperson of this ministry. I would recall, and I would request you to recall our exchange on the electronic means in this regard. Some of the questions that you just asked, I think I have answered in that exchange. But since you have asked here, let me mention that, obviously any NGO, whether it is an Indian NGO or a foreign NGO, has to operate in India, or for that matter, anywhere in the world, within the laws of the country where it is operating. So we have been very transparent in this regard. The whole matter here is a matter of law enforcement. It's the matter pertaining to following the laid down laws of the country, and we would expect any NGO to operate within the realms of that law. We have been very transparent. There have been meetings, as I have mentioned to you, of the senior government officials with the representatives of the NGO concerned, and we have made our position extremely clear to them as well as to anybody else who is cared to speak to us about it. As far as the alleged role that you say of RSS, I have mentioned to you earlier, and I will mention for the benefit of the audience here, that any such suppositions are completely extraneous to the matter. Thank you. Let me go to this side here.
Hi, Mr. Bagle. This is Aditya Raj Kaul. Regarding the recent statement of the former Pak NSA, Mahmood Ali Durrani, he made a very important statement stating that 2611, he basically reiterated that 2611 was masterminded by a group in Pakistan. It was a cross-border terror attack. He also said that Pakistan perhaps should take some firm action against Hafiz Saeed. So where do we stand on this? And do you think that Pakistan still needs to take some firm, decisive action so that there could be conducive bilateral talks? Thank you.
Firm bilateral action regarding what?
There could be bilateral dialogue that they have been asking for.
Firm bilateral
action against Hafiz Saeed, action against JEM and other terror groups.
Thank you, Adit. What the former NSA of Pakistan mentioned here, and which all of the media channels reported, I think there is nothing new in what he has said. We all along have known, even people and groups within Pakistan have never doubted the involvement of Pakistani entities in Mumbai terrorist attack in November 2008. Now, it has always been the position of the government that since the whole conspiracy was hatched in Pakistan and the attack was mounted from Pakistan, it is up to the government of Pakistan to fully investigate and bring to justice all the perpetrators involved in the heinous terrorist attack in Mumbai. So that position of the government hasn't changed. As to your larger question about Hafiz Saeed and JEM, etc., again, we know that these terrorist organizations, sometimes in the garb of charities, and their numerous affiliates, which carry several names, but they are proscribed by the UN. They continue to operate in Pakistan, and we would expect Pakistan to take actions against these entities as mandated by the international regimes, and stop cross-border terrorism and activities which these organizations and individuals have continued against India, targeted at India. Our leadership has very clearly said that Pakistan has to walk away from terror.
Ms. Bagle, I'm Suhasini Haider from The Hindu.
Sorry, let me finish this side, then I will come over to this.
Okay. One was a follow-up to Ellen's question. I just wanted to quote what the State Department spokespersons actually said. He said, I think, unfortunately, we've seen over the past couple of years a number of foreign-funded NGOs in India that have encountered significant challenges in continuing their operations. The entire statement is a criticism of India's actions when it comes to compassion, but he's also broadened it to other NGOs. So I'd like to know if the Indian government has any response to the US government taking this case up of an NGO in India, a specific NGO. This is not a government NGO of the US, and even so the US government has chosen to take it up at this level, and we know it has taken it up at higher levels. So is there any response to the specific statement made by Mr. Toner? And my second question is about the UN, the United Nations Security Council. Our permanent representative there has indicated that the veto is not necessary for India's candidacy for the UN Security Council permanent membership. I wanted to know if India is taking a different stand from the one it had taken in 2005 when the foreign minister had spoken in Parliament and said that India would not accept a membership of the UNSC without the veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhasini. In responding to Ellen just now, I have mentioned two important components of our approach to the whole matter here, which is one is that the entities functioning in India, whether they are Indian or foreign, are expected to function within the parameters of the country's law. And the second is that we have been completely transparent in this regard. We have spoken to anybody who has approached us in this regard. As to your question about the response, I think it's not our policy to respond in public, and I think you would appreciate that. Your second question about the ambassador or permanent representative's statement in the UN, I think you are referring to this statement in which he said that veto need not be a veto or something like that. All right. Let me make it clear that there is no change in the government's position, which basically is the G4 common position in this regard. And there are main elements are that there has to be an expansion in both the categories, the permanent category as well as the non-permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council. The new entrants to the permanent category could exercise a moratorium on their right to veto, on the exercise of the veto for 15 years. And that after 15 years, there will be a review of the reforms that are undertaken. These are the main elements. Of course, there are others also, but these are the main elements which pertain to your question. Now, what the permanent representative of India and my illustrious grand predecessor here in this position just mentioned yesterday was nothing else but to say that the question of veto should not become something which is made out into an impediment for protracting the much urgently needed Security Council reforms. That's all.
So this is Hani Kumar from Pudhi Thalamrai, Tamil Nadu News Channel. So I would like to ask about the fishermen issue again. So the previous high official level talks held between India and Sri Lanka, both of them come to the consensus that open fire will not happen. But now the firing has been happened. Do you think this is a breach of the Sri Lankan government? And what is the permanent solution for this Sri Lankan issue? If they are again breaching this agreement, then what is the use of holding talks again and again?
Hani, you are absolutely right. There is an understanding between the two governments, the two countries, that there cannot be any firing on the Indian fishermen. And that is completely, if such a firing were to take place, it is completely unacceptable. In this case, as you very well know, and as I've said in the beginning, the Sri Lankan Navy and the Sri Lankan government have maintained that there has been no firing from the Sri Lankan Navy side. However, they have agreed to thoroughly investigate the matter. So let us await the result of that investigation. Let us await the result of the investigation. Yes, Snehesh.
Hi, sir. Snehesh from Republic TV. Sir, it was famously and correctly said that blood and water cannot flow together. But now we have the water talks slated for later this month in Lahore. Is it an indication of the things that lies ahead? Is this a momentum towards restarting the talks between the two countries?
Well, let me dwell on this in a little bit of detail. When you say blood and water cannot flow together, that's what the Prime Minister said. We must understand that there were two messages in it, two inherent messages. One was a very important message aimed at those who received it, that they cannot continue terrorism against India. And they have to stop it. The second message was internal, within India, that under the Indus Waters Treaty, we have to exercise all our rights to the potential, to the extent that they are permitted by the treaty itself within the treaty. So these were the two elements of that message. Now, what you describe as water talks, I would, if you permit me to, and since you have yourself been stationed in Islamabad, I would like to point out that this is a regular meeting of the Permanent Indus Commission, which is a bipartisan body entrusted with the implementation of the Indus Waters Treaty. And it does so, it implements the treaty with the help of technical experts, the commissioners. So commissioners decide when to meet. In fact, the treaty mandates a meeting every year, alternately in India and Pakistan. So this is now Pakistan's turn to host it, and therefore the meeting is taking place. Commission implements the treaty. It's a technical meeting. It's a meeting of technical experts. I do not see the connection that you are making between various dots that you see. Ashish. Ashish, then Shinjoy.
Sir, as I remember, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just continuing to Sneha's question. We were told that India had decided to unilaterally drop the talks, the Indus Water Commission talks. So on what premise are we, again restarting the talks?
It's not a good omen for me to openly differ with you, but in this case, I would beg to disagree. I don't think that there was ever any statement from the government that we are dropping or we are cancelling any scheduled talks on water. Shinjoy?
So just a few days ago, there was a 2-day meeting with British officials who had come. The Indian side was led by the CPB JS, and the issues included getting back Vijay Mallya. Can you tell us what happened? What were the Indian positions? And what kind of assurances have the British given on Vijay Mallya? Also, sir, we have not just seen Kansas, but South Carolina and Seattle. 3 attacks in 3 different parts of America. Now, yes, Donald Trump has spoken and people have called, but is there a fear that these attacks are spreading?
Thank you, Shinjoy. As to your first question, I think it is not appropriate for me to dwell on the details that have been discussed between the two sides, if they have been discussed, as you say, about Mr. Mallya or any particular individual. As to your second question, I think what we need to see here is the strong engagement by the government of India as well as by the US authorities concerned. After the very unfortunate Kansas killing or shooting, you have seen the engagement of the government of India. We strongly took up the matter. The US Embassy issued a statement. You saw various US authorities, including President Trump, made a reference to the Kansas incident in his address to the Congress. US Congress also came out, US Congress people came out with the statements in this regard. So there has been a condemnation of it, widespread condemnation. The message that we have got, we have received, the impression that we have, is it has been sought to be conveyed to us that this is an aberration. This does not represent the view of vast majority of the Americans in any way. In fact, let me mention here that the governor of Kansas has written a letter to the Prime Minister, which has been received. And in the letter, while I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, but the broad sense is that there is a sense of regret. There is a sense of support to the family of Mr. Srinivas Kuchibhotla. There is a sense that Mr. Srinivas and Indians like him have made a tremendous contribution to Kansas and to the United States, and that the Indians are welcome. So while I see your point that there have been these incidents, but we also need to see the response at the same time. The response of the US authorities has been forthright. We will, in any case, continue our very strong engagement to ensure the security and safety of both Indians as well as people of Indian origins abroad, not only in United States, but anywhere else in the world. Now let me just balance myself and come to this side. Yes.
Sir, I'm Suchitra from News 18 Tamil Nadu. Sir, it is again related to the fisherman issue actually. So whenever the Sri Lankan government is giving an assurance to release the fishermen, they are not releasing their boats actually. So that is their main livelihood. And my second question is, will there be any joint working committees meeting in upcoming weeks?
Thank you, Suchitra, for your question. As you know, we remain engaged. We keep taking up the matter of the release of boats with the Sri Lankan government. We have once again raised this matter in the past few days, and we'll continue to raise this matter because you are right, this concerns the livelihood of our fishermen. As for the joint working committee meeting, it I think recently took place of the fishermen in the last I think in January, but whether it's going to take place in the near future, I will have to check and come back to you.
Sir, what input MEA does have on presence of IS in India in regarding entry and presence of IS in India from the countries where IS has a stronghold?
I'm afraid you might have to direct this question to some of my colleagues in another ministry or agency.
Sir, you said regarding that fishermen shot by Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka ordered for probe. But there is any time bound for that probe? Another question is, fishermen in Tamil Nadu continuously protesting for last 3 days. They asking assurance from Indian government, whether it is external ministry or some secretaries. They asking for that any such events should not happen in future. So how do you want to react that, sir?
What the Sri Lankan government has told us about the investigation is a very categorical assurance that they will investigate it thoroughly. I would expect that it will be done very, very expeditiously, keeping in view the gravity of the matter, the humanitarian nature of the matter, and the seriousness of the situation. But you would appreciate if sitting here where I am sitting, I will not be able to put a timeline to it, but we of course expect it to be done in a very expeditious manner. As to your second question about such incidents will not be repeated, I would like to point out what I mentioned a few minutes ago. In fact, Hani mentioned that a few minutes ago, that there is an existing understanding that Indian fishermen will not be fired upon. So we hope that this understanding will continue to hold, and the investigation in this particular incident will be completed soon.
मैं पंकज पांडे हूं हिंदुस्तान अखबार से। मेरा सवाल है कि अभी पाकिस्तान ने हाफिज सईद को नज़रबंद किया और भारतीय सैनिक को रिहा किया, चंदूलाल चौहान को, तो क्या कुछ इस तरह की सकारात्मक स्थिति बन सकती है निकट भविष्य में कि भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच फिर से बातचीत शुरू हो, या भारत अपनी उस शर्त पर कायम है कि जब तक आतंकवाद सीमा पार से खत्म नहीं होता है कोई बातचीत नहीं होगी, और अगर कोई बातचीत होगी तो वो आतंकवाद पर ही होगी?
Sir, today, after a long gap, Indian Army and Pakistan Army resumed their interaction at DGMO level. India's DGMO talked to his counterpart. Is that an indication that even civilian leadership would be in talks and very soon, as was being speculated in media, that immediately after assembly polls, there may be talks?
Let me answer your question first. To the best of my knowledge, and I had knowledge at least until the last week when I was Joint Secretary dealing with Pakistan, the two armies, the Indian Army and the Pakistan Army, have an established institutional mechanism of regular contact over hotline between their Directors General of Military Operations, the two sides. They maintain this contact, they remain in touch very regularly. It's not after a very long time that they have contacted. What has happened today, I think, is that the Indian DGMO has informed his Pakistani counterpart that these two teenagers who had crossed over in September around the time of Ori attack, they would be released because no evidence has been found of their involvement in the Uri attack. All right? So this contact between the two armies is a very much regular feature. Coming back to आपके सवाल का जवाब देने के लिए, देखिए ऐसा है कि मानवीय जो मसले हैं, मानवीय मुद्दे हैं, हमारे मछुआरे हैं या कैदी हैं, पाकिस्तान के मछुआरे हैं और कैदी हैं, आपने देखा कि दोनों तरफ से उनकी रिहाई हुई है पिछले कुछ हफ्तों में। दिसंबर से शुरू करें अगर, तो पाकिस्तान ने भी तकरीबन 400 के आसपास भारतीय मछुआरों की रिहाई करी है, और हमारे पास भी करीब हमने 30 के ऊपर उनके कैदी और मछुआरों को रिहा किया है। ये मानवीय मुद्दे हैं, और इन मानवीय मुद्दों पे दोनों देशों की सरकार डिप्लोमेटिक चैनल से, राजनयिक चैनल से, सूत्रों के आधार पर वो आपस में संपर्क में रहती हैं इनको लगातार एड्रेस करने के लिए। लेकिन इनको मैं आपसे गुजारिश करूँगा कि आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा कि आप इनको आतंकवाद के मसले के साथ संबंधित ना करें, क्योंकि आतंकवाद एक ऐसा मसला है, एक ऐसी बीमारी है जो कि भारत को ही नहीं बल्कि भारत के सभी जो पड़ोसी देश हैं, बहुत से पड़ोसी देश हैं, उनको ये खतरे में डाल रही है, और उनकी शांति, उनकी सुरक्षा के ऊपर इसके गहरे बादल मंडराते रहते हैं। तो हमारी पाकिस्तान से ये अपेक्षा है कि पाकिस्तान ये जो हमारे पूरे पड़ोस में इस आतंकवाद का काला साया है उसको दूर करने के लिए वो कोई ना कोई कदम सुनिश्चित तौर पर उठाएगा और इस बीमारी को जड़ से निकालेगा। इस बारे में हमारी नेतृत्व के और हमारे विचार आपके सामने पहले रखे जा चुके हैं, वो बहुत क्लियर है।
हेलो सर, अनीता चौधरी, नेशनल वॉइस से। सर, मेरा सवाल एनएसजी और भारत के मेंबरशिप को लेकर के है। चीन बार बार ऑब्जेक्शन रेज कर रहा है, अपने टेक्निकल पॉइंट्स पे अभी भी वो स्टिक है। साथ ही चीन ने भारत को तो एडमायर किया है उसके रोल को लेकर, लेकिन पाकिस्तान की वहीं पे पैरवी भी की है कि पाकिस्तान का स्टेक बनता है। इस पर इंडिया का क्या रिएक्शन है?
जैसा कि आप जानते हैं, चीन के साथ न्यूक्लियर सप्लायर ग्रुप के बारे में जो हमारे विचार विमर्श है, जो हमारा संवाद है, वो चल रहा है। और आपने देखा होगा कि फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी भी जब पिछले महीने चीन गए थे, उन्होंने स्ट्रेटेजिक डायलॉग किया था, तो उस दौरान भी इसके बारे में चर्चा हुई थी। जो हमारे जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी हैं संबंधित, वो भी गए थे, उन्होंने भी अपने काउंटर पार्ट से इसके बारे में चर्चा करी थी। दोनों देशों ने एक दूसरे के साथ बड़े खुल के इस विषय पर बातचीत करी है। हम इस हालत में हैं कि हम एक दूसरे की पोजीशन को, एक दूसरे की स्थिति को समझते हैं, और हम आशा करते हैं हमारी ओर से कि ये डायलॉग हम आगे जारी रख सकेंगे, और इसका आगे जो परिणाम निकलेगा वो अच्छा परिणाम निकलेगा। नाउ आई हैव टाइम ओनली फॉर लास्ट 2 questions.
Good evening, Gopal. I am George Kalavail from Deepika, Malayalam. You may be well aware that, one of our Indian citizens, especially a priest, has been abducted in Yemen, Father Tom Urinalil. And it is almost more than a year has been passed. And government has been saying that your government is trying their best. And is there a high-level committee for the release of Father Tom? What is the latest on this?
George, I think I can only tell you at this stage that we continue to make our efforts. Now, where we are, I think we will continue to make these efforts, but if there is any specific update, I can let you know.
I'm Stacy from Hong Kong Phoenix TV. Last week, we see Chinese National People's Congress spokesperson Fu Ying talked about India-China relation. And when she talked about CPEC, she said One Belt and One Road initiative will benefit India also. So when we see this issue, we should see it from a larger picture. But this is how Chinese see this issue. How about India? And if you can tell us, because in May, OBOR summit will happen in China, the foreign minister, Wang Yi, said more than 20 leaders will attend that summit. Does India decide who will represent India already in that OBOR summit? Thank you.
Look, our position, in fact, the government of India's thrust and India's thrust on connectivity, on promotion of connectivity is very clear, very obvious. We are all for promoting connectivity, and because that helps to bring people together, that promotes economy, that promotes trade. As far as OBOR, that's our general position. As far as OBOR is concerned, One Belt, One Road initiative, there, you know that our position is, since CPEC, or the so-called CPEC, forms a part of OBOR, that's where our difficulty is. It passes or proposes to pass through what is sovereign Indian territory. And we have made our views in this regard very, very clear to the Chinese side. As to your question about the OBOR event in May, when a decision is taken, we will let you know. Thank you very much. I see a lot of hands. I'm afraid in the given time, I'm unable to do justice to all of you. Okay, one last question here, because that's, Ranjit, I can talk to you at the T, if you permit.
No, just a supplementary to what George asked about Father Tom. Whenever we ask this question, the standard reply for the last 1 year is that we are making the best efforts. At least can we have a confirmation whether Father Tom is alive or not?
I understand the sentiment behind your question. In fact, we all continue to make very sincere efforts. The confirmation of, in such situations, you would appreciate that the confirmation of somebody continuing to be alive is very important. But unfortunately, sometimes we will have to depend on the bad news, which is the good news in this case, that there is no bad news. So you can only confirm that somebody is not living. You cannot confirm that somebody is alive or not alive. It's basically, in some cases, it's the death about the demise that confirms that the person is not there. In this case, fortunately, we don't have this bad news. Okay? So that gives us hope, and therefore we'll continue to make our very sincere efforts. Thank you very much.